Keep it hoop back with another short video slash podcast. Just wanted to talk about some of the few takeaways from the slate of games last night. Before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Let us know if you had any takeaways or thoughts from the beginning of the season. All right, so I'll go one by one with the games last night, and we started off with the Hornets and Cavs. Not the most hyped game, but it was a pretty close and exciting one. Terry Rozier stole the show for the Hornets with 42 points, but the Cavs, led by Sexton and Garland, took the win. I was really impressed by both of the young guards for Cleveland. I think Sexton's best role in the league is probably a bench player, a really good one at that. I think he's a better version of a guy like Lou Williams. But he's been pretty efficient, and he tries on defense. If he can ever become a decent playmaker, which last night he did have 5 assists, then I do think he can be a good starter in the league. And Garland, he did have some really bad stats last year, at least in terms of analytics. But I've always been high on him, and I think he passes the eye test, and he does have the skills. And look, he's a decent passer and has always been a good shooter. I don't know if the Cavs can ever be a good team or a winning team with both of them starting, just because of the lack of size, the consistent passing. And look, I know Garland had 6 assists last night, but it was good to see both of the young guards come out and play the way they did. Also, Larry Nance had himself a really nice game, 13 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists. He should be a decent fill-in for Kevin Love while he's day-to-day with his injury. But the biggest takeaway has to be LaMelo Ball. I know it's just one game, but 0 for 5 and his scoring and shooting percentages so far, if you look at preseason as well, have been pretty bad. And he only got 16 minutes last night. Look, I'm sure he's going to have some good games, but there will be some growing pains and downs like this as well. I do think he turns out to be a good player and still have a solid rookie season, but he's going to have games like this, and you hate to see it, but honestly, I'm not too surprised. So the Knicks-Pacers game, the Knicks actually stayed with the Pacers for 2.5, 3 quarters, but just didn't have enough. RJ Barrett did start out the game on fire, and Julius Randle did look more in control and ended up with 9 assists. But Emmanuel quickly left the game with hip pointer, which was unfortunate to see after the good preseason that he had. Obi Toppin and Knox struggled a bit, and Indiana does have a solid defense, so it's not the biggest red flag, but hopefully they can continue to build off of their preseason. But man, Oladipo having 22 points on 9 of 14 was huge. And look, if the Pacers can stay healthy, because I had them out of the playoffs only because of their injury history with Brogdon and Oladipo. But if they can stay healthy, they have 4 guys that can efficiently get you 20 on any night, right? So they have Brogdon, they have Oladipo, and then they have Sabonis, who had 32 and 13 and just dominated. And then they have Warren, who didn't even play well last night. So if Depot can be the Depot before the injury, this team is going to be super scary. The Heat lost a close game to the Magic, and my takeaways from this game were 2 things. Aaron Gordon and the sophomores from Miami. So Aaron Gordon, I think Jonathan Isaac, who went down, he's already one of the best defenders in the league, and he went down with a knee injury in the bubble, which is super, unfortunate. It sucked to see. But Aaron Gordon, I think, finally has a bigger and more defined role on the offense, and he looked good last night. 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 steals. And if he can take the next step along with Fultz, who secured the bag in the offseason and played well as well, they may be good enough to stay in the race for the playoff spot, 7-8 playoff spot, if those 2 guys can take the next step. And what I mean by the sophomores on Miami, one was that Tyler Hero is still going to be Tyler Hero. Like, he only went, I think, 5 of 14, and only had 13 points, but the aggression's still going to be there. He did have, I think, 4 assists, which was nice to see him have more playmaking. But Kendrick Nunn, man, he only played 8 minutes, and ever since he missed time in the bubble, just hasn't been able to get back in the lineup or play the same minutes or the role that he did before the NBA break. A little bit disappointing to see, so we'll keep an eye on that going forward. The Sixers and Wizards played a close game and an exciting game at that. Biggest takeaway, though, is that the Wizards have no rebounding. And, I mean, look, Thomas Bryant is a smaller center at 6'10". Bonga and Avdia aren't the biggest guys, right? And Bertans is big, but he doesn't play around the rim. Robin Lopez is an off-the-bench guy, and Wagner isn't a great rebounder. And Rui Hachimura, who didn't even play last night, is a decent defender, but he's, again, not necessarily a huge guy either. Rest of the team with 11 rebounds, and he had a triple-double with 15 assists and 21 points, and did look pretty good. But, man, they just really struggled, and big teams, going forward are going to be able to take advantage of that. And the Wizards might really struggle. The Sixers had, let's say, Ben Simmons had 9 rebounds, and Embiid had 14. Dwight had 10 off the bench, and Tobias Harris had 8. And the second leading rebounder on the Wizards was Thomas Bryant at 5. And they got out-rebounded by 7 and gave up 10 offensive boards while only getting 5 themselves. And in a close matchup like this, when you lose by 6, that can often be the difference, right? So a thing to keep an eye on going forward. The Celtics won in a close down to the wire game against the Bucks, and man, my friends and I were actually talking about the game, and one of them asked if we think Giannis will make the free throw to win the game. And as much as I like Giannis and root for him, I honestly couldn't see him making both. It's not that Giannis isn't clutch, but his shooting just isn't there yet. And look, he did have a big three down the stretch, but he also airballed one, and that second free throw wasn't even really close. And I just couldn't see him making both, and I guess I didn't realize how little confidence I have in who I think is the best or second best player in the world right now. And, I guess that was my realization. And then just the fact that, look, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are really good. It was nice seeing Jaylen Brown finally getting a bigger role, I think, with Hayward and Kemba the last few years. And I know Kemba's coming back, but there were times where he kind of just got relegated to being a spot-up shooter. But Jaylen Brown's a really good player, and he did carry this team for a large stretch of time, while Tatum was struggling today or last night. And if you look at the attempts, you really see that this team is going to be carried by those two. And, their bench is really just a lot of hustle guys. And these two young guys, especially while Kemba's out, are going to get a lot of looks. And most nights, one of them, if not both, will be on. But when they aren't, they will have a hard time scoring. That being said, Jeff Teague was a big pickup because of that. And he's been a winning point guard, and that has, plenty of experience. And he did come up big last night with 19 points. So if you look at the Pelicans game, they pulled off a win against the Raptors pretty comfortably, actually. Van Vliet and Powell really struggled, going 5 for 23 and 21 points. Won't happen often, but there are, these are the games that you want Siakam to be that franchise guy. And if he is trying to be that, he needs to be able to carry harder in games where his team struggles. He didn't play bad. He had 20 points on 8 of 17, but you want to see a bit more from him. The Pelicans played really only 8 guys, and only 2 guys off the bench played more than 15 minutes. It was JJ Redick and Josh Hart. That's pretty standard for Stan Van Gundy and the way he likes to use his rotation. Zion did have 6 turnovers, which doesn't look good on paper, but I'm fine with him getting more touches and just being more aggressive and trying to make plays, whether it's for himself or his team. He did only take 9 shots, though, and you want to see him get more. But the good thing was Lonzo went 4 of 8 from 3, and even Bledsoe went 4 of 8 from 3, and then you add on the 6 of 11 on 3-pointers from JJ Redick, and then 3 of 6 from Ingram, which was kind of surprising. I think a lot of people saw that, especially with Bledsoe and Lonzo in the backcourt, this team was going to struggle spacing the floor and being able to make enough threes. Because Ingram's another guy who's a good shooter, or scorer overall, but he's not like a knockdown 3-point guy. He likes to operate more in the mid-range, right? So it was a bit surprising, and it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that up, because I think that will play a big role in if they can be competitive in the West or not. In the Hawks game, it was just Trae Young, man. Trae Young is really good, and it's not surprising. And the way he came out to start game 1 of his 3rd year was really impressive. But the biggest thing that stood out was Cam Reddish, and he looked really good. He had a really bad rookie season, and it was pretty disappointing. He looked lost out there sometimes, both handling the ball and on defense. But I was really high on him coming out of the draft because of his athleticism and shooting, and he really did look like the player I expected him to coming out. And the Bulls, they struggled, especially Kobe White had an off night, but Patrick Williams looked really good, 16 and 4 on 5 of 11, and people were surprised when the Bulls took him where they did. But I gotta say, it was a pleasant surprise to see him play the way he did last night. In the Spurs game, DeMar DeRozan playing the 4 was an interesting wrinkle, but it gave a lot of time to Lonnie Walker and Keldon Johnson. Plus, DeRozan still dropped 28 on 7 of 14 and got to the line 15 times, made 14 of those 15 free throws. So for the guys that are disrespecting him, stop it. Yes, he doesn't shoot threes, but look, again, if you're going 28 points on 7 of 14, you don't need to shoot threes. Cut the disrespect. And the Spurs, who were kind of known as that team, were just continuously in the playoffs, always contending. They've been in a weird transition phase for a couple years now, but the Spurs have a very solid group of young guys, right? They have, Derek White and Lonnie Walker and DeJounte Murray. And look, none of those guys are that like superstar face of the franchise Luka or Trae type players, but they do have a nice core, and it's nice to see, and also interesting to see Pop and how he brings these guys along after being someone that really relied on his veterans. I was talking with Osiris, who's been on the show numerous times before, but we were talking about how Ja hasn't had too many moments or games where he takes the game over completely. And that's not just passing, but just, imposing his will on the game and having that killer mentality. But that's exactly what he showed last night in game one of his sophomore campaign. 44 points, had 2 threes only, and I didn't see him, being a 25 point per game scorer, and I still don't. But to see that aggression and confidence scoring wise was nice to see. And like Trey and Luka did last year when, it was their second year, I am excited to see what kind of jump Ja makes in his second year. Not going to lie, not much to say about the Pistons-Wolves game. I think the Pistons starting lineup is kind of janky with the super big lineup. They got Blake Griffin, Plumlee, and Jeremy Grant. But it was nice to see Plumlee, though. He had a really nice game. Grant did struggle, and Blake was a bit quiet. Josh Jackson actually had a really nice game, though, with 19 points. And after being very hyped up out of college and having a disappointing career so far, maybe Detroit is a place he can finally blossom and become the player we were expecting. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Sacramento and Denver was actually a really fun game to watch. Jamal Murray struggled and went 1 of 9. And, the Nuggets will go as far as Jamal Murray takes them, right? Especially in the playoffs, because Jokic is pretty consistent and he's going to be Jokic for most of the games. But they will go as far as he takes them. It was also nice to see MPJ, who I have as winning the most improved player of the year. He went 9 of 15 and had 24 points, so a good opener for him. But the big things for the Kings is just health. I don't think I don't have them in the playoffs, and I don't think they're gonna be incredibly good. But with Fox, Bagley, and Hield, if they can stay healthy, they have the potential to pull off upset wins like this and just stay relevant enough. And Barnes actually played really well, but this game and this team really comes down to Fox and Hield, and they really carry them down the stretch. And then they got the win, which was impressive, especially since Bagley just went 5 of 14 and had 13 points. The Blazers just got embarrassed in their opener by the Jazz. The Jazz looked pretty good. It was weird because, look, Donovan Mitchell went 6 of 16. Royce O'Neal went 0 for 5. Conley went 6 of 15, and Bogdanovich went 5 of 14. So the starting lineup outside of Gobert went 17 of 50. And they still won the game handily, which is insane. But Gobert just dominated, 20 points, 17 rebounds on 8 of 10. And it was weird. Dame only took 12 shots and looked uninterested for some reason. Rocco went 0 of 3 in his Blazers debut. I guess if you're a Blazers fan and you're looking for something to be positive about, Melo and Cantor, shout out to 2 former Knicks players. But they did play well with 15 and 14 respectively. Pretty disappointing start for the Blazers, though. And last but not least, we have the Suns and Mavs, who played another close one. 2 teams that will probably be pretty close in the standings this year. The Suns did this with CP3 going 3 of 9 for only 8 points, and Ayton just had 13. Booker did have 22, but Cam Johnson had 15, Payne and Galloway at 11, and Mikal Bridges had 18. And these are the games that you like to see a young team win. Close games when your stars aren't going off for 30. It was a good team effort, solid defense. Their bench showed up, and this was a good confidence booster for the Suns because Chris Paul's not going to have any trouble, right? He's going to be fine. He's going to be Chris Paul. But to see these young guys and some of the bench guys step up, and they played pretty good defense on a Mavs team who had a great offense last season, really nice to see. Luka went 11 of 26, and look, he needs help. Having Kristaps back whenever he does come back will obviously be big, but until then, he's going to need help. Jalen Brunson had a solid game, and him, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Richardson also all had 12, but Dallas just really struggled other than Luka. And Luka himself, again, he went 11 of 26, so it's not like he shot well. Tim Hardaway's probably going to need a step up because although he had 12, he only went 3 of 10. I think, though, guys like Tim Hardaway and Josh Richardson are going to have to step up in the absence of Kristaps, and maybe it's not going to be just scoring. They're going to need to give Luka some help in playmaking and just on-ball duties, but Luka's going to continue to put up numbers, but he's definitely going to need some help for the time that KP is out, and especially if they want to stay in a tough Western Conference race, right? But yeah, pretty fun day of basketball. Had a lot of games, and no games tonight, and we have the big nationally televised games tomorrow. But yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment, and thanks for watching and listening. See ya.